The harsh reality is that millions of us are on course to retire with insufficient savings. A substantial portion of the population in the UK is going to face a retirement which is going to be plagued by poverty. Crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. I don't get invited to many parties and it needs sorting out, and quickly. Many of us are going to be facing a rude awakening when that day finally arrives. Now, most of us are already saving about 8% of our earnings into a workplace pension scheme. Let me ask you a quick question. Do you think that this 8% contribution is going to guarantee us a comfortable retirement? Well, I'd invite you all to think again. Now, millions of us are just sleepwalking into financial uncertainty, where many of us are going to retire with far less than we need to live on in retirement. Now, there are experts now who are warning that contributing less than 12% into a workplace pension could leave us all struggling to make ends meet in our retirement. So the question isn't, should we be saving more? But rather, can we afford not to save more? Now, it's absolutely clear that most of us wouldn't risk our retirement just by crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. But with the rising cost of living and the fact that many of us are going to be fortunate enough to enjoy a longer and a healthier life, millions of us are going to fall short, sometimes way short, of the income that we're going to need in retirement. So in this week's video, I'm going to be looking at the overall state of our workplace pensions. I'm going to be reacting to a recent report and its findings, which was commissioned by Phoenix Group, which is a major pension provider here in the UK. So welcome back to the Personal Finance crew. And if this is your first time, a very warm welcome to the Economies channel, where together we're going to be learning the language of money and wealth. But we're also dedicated and passionate about mastering money and making financial wisdom available to absolutely everybody. Hi, my name is Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner based in the UK. So why don't you follow me back to the studio, where we're going to get into this very controversial subject and this report together, and maybe it's going to be able to understand what the implications are going to be for all of us. So I'll see you in a minute. Now, retirement may seem like something on the very distant horizon, but many of us are going to be facing a rude awakening when that day finally arrives. Now, the UK is facing a looming retirement and savings crisis, and experts are urging people to reconsider their current pension contributions. So what is this current magic number that's being floated around by economists, think tanks and financial analysts? Well, that magic number is 12%. So if you're currently contributing the bare minimum of 8%, you may be setting yourself up for a life of financial hardship in retirement. But why are these higher contributions necessary in the first place? And more importantly, what does that mean for all of us who are saving diligently for our retirement? Well, before we get started, I'm going to pop up the usual disclaimer to say that this video is for education and for entertainment purposes only, and it shouldn't be misconstrued or misunderstood as us offering financial advice. Now, I'm also going to recommend a further 2 videos in this series at the end of this video. And I've also added chapters to the video so you can jump around to the part of the video which interests you the most. So let's talk about the pension crisis. Well, let's face it, pensions are unnecessarily complicated, and thinking about retirement is not everyone's favourite subject. I should know, because that's certainly why I don't get invited to many parties, that's for sure. But the harsh reality is that millions of us are on course to retire with insufficient savings. Now, various studies have highlighted that a significant number of employees, especially those on low or middle incomes, are failing to save enough to ensure that they have a financial security during their retirement. Now, with longer life expectancy and rising living costs, the current level of contribution rates into our pension schemes just simply aren't cutting it anymore. So how did we get here? Well, the government realised that we were not saving enough for our retirement, and we were all too reliant on the state pension. Now, the state pension currently costs about £125 billion a year. And with people living longer and with falling birth rates and fewer workers paying tax and national insurance, the cost of providing the state pension is likely just to keep on rising. Now, our national insurance goes to pay for the state pensions of older generations who are now retired, and our state pensions will eventually be paid by the younger generations. So a solution was needed so we were less reliant on the state pension. So auto-enrolment started in October 2012, if I remember correctly, with the largest employers going first. Now, the initial phase introduced a contribution level of 1% for the employer and 1% for the employee. And that was later increased to 2% for the employer and 3% for the employee in 2019. And then finally, it was increased to 3% for the employer and 5% for the employee. And there have been no changes to that contribution level for the last 5 years. Now, a major report published this month from the Phoenix Group is saying that kicking the can down the road and thinking that this crisis is tomorrow's problem, well, that has arrived today and it needs sorting out, and quickly. So it is possible that the next contribution level is going to be set at 12%, with 5% paid by the employer and 7% paid by the employee. That certainly seems to fit the previous direction of travel. Now, the Department of Work and Pensions, the DWP, states that 12.5 million people are undersaving for their retirement, and there are many voices urging the government to increase our workplace contributions. And Standard Life has analysis that the legal minimum for our contributions into our workplace pensions should also be increased to 12%. Now, the Fabian Society is a left-leaning think tank advising the government, and they are also calling for a minimum contribution level of 12%. Even more worrying, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the IFS, warns that between 30 and 40% of us are going to fall short from the income that we need in our retirement. Now, these are shocking statistics suggesting that unless something changes in quickly, a substantial portion of the population in the UK is going to face a retirement which is going to be plagued by poverty. Now, the recent report out from the Phoenix Group shows that they estimate there are 6.4 million people undersaving for their retirement, and 2.3 million people are going to be financially struggling. That's almost 9 million people. Just let that sink in for a minute. And the report goes on to suggest that 15% of us, just 15% of us, are on track. That means that 85% of us clearly are not on track. So why is 12% the magic number? Well, many experts argue that the current contribution level of 8% is going to create a significant shortfall in the income required to secure a decent level of retirement and a dignified retirement. So increasing the contribution rate to 12% is going to significantly boost the savings over our working lives. And according to the PLSA, such an increase of 12% in our contributions would bring more people closer to a moderate standard of living in retirement. But this isn't someone just putting their finger in the air and making guesses. There is economic modelling that shows that 12% is the tipping point that could help prevent widespread poverty in retirement. So if you're finding value in this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And we've got more and more people coming back than ever before, and we're building our growing community. So please turn your device on its side and then settle in for the second half of the video. You can also hit the notification bell as well, so you won't miss any of this content, which is published at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And this is also going to really help us get this financial message to as many people as possible. So thank you in advance. So let's talk about the real threat of undersaving for your retirement. Now, it's human nature to avoid thinking about the worst case scenario. When it comes to our retirement, undersaving is the elephant in the room that could sabotage all our financial futures. Now, most of us aren't actively thinking about how our current contributions could result in a loss later in life, yet this is exactly the situation which the experts are warning about. Now, what do I mean by loss? Well, I don't mean financial loss in this context, but rather representing a significant loss to your standard of living in retirement. Now, imagine just reaching your 70s or even your 80s and being forced to downsize your home and move to a new area and surround yourself with new people. Or even struggling with your healthcare or domestic care costs. Or even having to sacrifice the simple pleasures like traveling or dining out, or even being able to have your hobbies. All because you didn't save enough when you had the chance. Now, this fear of a loss of a lifestyle should be a wake-up call for all of us. Now, we all know that the cost of waiting and delaying preparing for our retirement can be enormous. And every year that goes by without increasing our contributions into our pension just compounds the problem and kicks the problem further down the road. But many of us don't want to contribute more into our pensions, or a lot of us can't even afford to pay more into our pensions either. And because of that, that's why we may all be forced to contribute more from our wages if the government increases the legal minimum contribution to 12%. Now, the push for all of us to pay 12% of our salary into our workplace pensions is going to mean immediate, but also some subtle changes to our lifestyle. Now, national insurance contributions fell from 12% to 10% and to the current level of 8%. So there is some wriggle room to reclaim some of those savings and have them then redirected into our workplace pension. Currently, the government can't force a self-employed to contribute into a pension. And the lack of self-employed saving is another video in itself. But for those of you who are watching who are self-employed, how would you react if you were forced to contribute into a pension? Do you think it's a good idea? Let me know in the comments section below. So what's next for auto-enrolment? Well, workplace pensions and auto-enrolment has been an unmitigated success in the UK. Now the focus is going to turn from participation into pension schemes into making sure that the contributions that we make are adequate. And one solution will be making contributions based on every pound that we earn rather than based on an income which is above £10,000. That's going to help more people in low-paying jobs or with multiple part-time jobs. And the hope certainly is that with increased contributions, we can avoid a widespread retirement crisis and create a future where more people can retire with dignity. So in conclusion, the bottom line is actually fairly simple. If we want to enjoy financial independence and a comfortable standard of living in retirement, we should strongly consider increasing our pension contributions. Now, if we are unwilling or unable to do it, then the legal minimum contribution levels may be forced upon us and deducted directly from our wages. So with the budget just a few days away now on the 30th of October, I've linked a further 2 videos in this series about government changes to your finances and another one about giving you just days to save your pension from a potential government tax grab. Thank you for watching to the very end, for your time and for your patience as always. I'll see you all again next week with a special budget summary.